Welcome back to another episode. How exciting. Last week we spoke about the 3 mechanisms of hypertrophy. This week we're going to be speaking about reverse dieting. So, reverse dieting is something that not a lot of people have heard of. To put it very simply, it is an exit strategy after dieting. Right? You know, when you've gone through long periods of calorie restriction with the main purpose of reducing body fat and getting leaner, you need to have an exit strategy. Because if you just go back to eating, like if you've been dieting and eating a low amount of calories, let's say 1600, 1700 calories, you get to your desired body composition level, and then you just go back to eating, 23, 2400 calories, you're going to regain all of that weight that you've worked so hard to lose. So the whole purpose of a reverse diet is to mitigate or prevent the fat regain from happening. Okay, now the thing with reverse dieting is that, as long as when I last checked this, no studies have been done on reverse dieting. Therefore, we don't really have any literature or data, to reinforce or back up, the fact that reverse dieting actually works. But there are plenty of case studies. I have plenty of clients who have taken through a reverse diet. I myself have reverse dieted, and I know that there are a lot of other very, good coaches like Lane Norton, who, of course, advocates for the sort of use of reverse dieting. So, without further ado, let me just, run you through, why you would reverse diet, and then I'll run you through the practical sort of application of how it actually works, right? So, as I said before, right, if you've been in a dieting phase, long periods of calorie restriction, you've probably had to reduce your calories week after week, or, fortnight after fortnight, or whatever, right? And you've achieved this leanness that you've wanted for a long time. So you're in a position now where you look in the mirror and you go, okay, I'm liking how lean I look. But the fact of the matter is, you're probably going to be eating a very low and unsustainable level of food. 1,500 calories, 1,600 calories. It depends on the individual. Of course, if you, are a bigger chap with a maybe more active lifestyle, you might still be eating 2,000 calories or whatever. But look, generally speaking, the more food you can eat, to maintain your composition, the better, because who doesn't like eating food? So as you diet, a process called metabolic adaptation or adaptive thermogenesis, a bit of a tongue twister. It's the same thing, sometimes just called 2 names, okay? This process is occurring. I'll try and explain it as best as I can. So your body is always striving for equilibrium, for balance. So if you reduce your calories, your body's going to burn body fat, maybe slow down your metabolism slightly to find that balance, right? This is why your deficit, if you drop calories to go into a deficit, after a certain period, it won't be a deficit anymore and you'll stop losing weight. So you've got to drop calories again, your body burns body fat, slows down your metabolism a little bit to find that equilibrium, okay? And this keeps happening until you can't take your calories any lower, right? Because then you would just die, or you reach the sort of level of leanness that you've wanted to achieve, okay? So that's the sort of process of what happens when you're dieting. So you get to this end point when you can't take calories any lower, right? Or you've reached the leanness that you want. So what we want to do now is, in a way, reverse this metabolic adaptation, reverse this adaptive thermogenesis. Now, when you were dieting, you would have reduced calories significantly enough to cause your body to see a need to make change, Let's say your baseline was 2,500 when you started dieting, your maintenance intake. So, and you drop your calories to say 2,000 or 1,900. So that's going to be a reduction of 500 to 600 calories. That significant drop in calories, your body goes, oh fuck, we don't have any more food coming in right now. We need to tighten up, the ship a little bit, make the metabolism more efficient, burn some body fat so we can survive off of this current intake of food. That's what happens when you diet, basically. And to put it very, very simply, that's what metabolic adaptation is. Now, with reverse dieting, you're trying to, again, use metabolic adaptation or adaptive thermogenesis to your advantage, but you do it slightly differently. When you're dieting, you reduce calories significantly to cause your body to burn fat to catch up. Now, with reverse dieting, what you want to do is, obviously we're going the other way, right? So we want to increase calories, but you do it very, very, very marginally. So slight increase, your body catches up. Slight increase, your body catches up. And what we find with these case studies, as I've said, is that your metabolism, so you get the positive effects of metabolic adaptation or adaptive thermogenesis, whereby your metabolism becomes a bit more efficient, but you don't get the fat regain, which is magic. I know it sounds like something out of fucking Harry Potter, but it's true. So what we're saying is that you can basically eat more food, right? Restore your metabolism to a more efficient level without regaining fat. And that's why it's called an exit strategy, because you want to maintain the level of leanness that you've worked so hard to achieve in the dieting phase, right? But just eat more food without regaining the fat. So I hope you're still with me, because some people do, struggle to comprehend this because it sounds too good to be true. Now, of course, you can't just keep increasing your calories forever. Some people are like, oh, Ben, well, why can't I just eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day? Unfortunately, that's not possible. With a reverse diet, of course, as you're increasing your calories, you will have to track your weight, your body composition, your progress, just to make sure everything's nice and steady, right? What I do with my clients is when we get them to the end of their dieting phase, we obviously start the reverse diet, and every week they're doing a check-in. So they're monitoring their weight, the visuals via the photos and measurements, okay? I've taken clients from 1,500 calories a day to 2,500 calories a day, and their weight has been nice and perfectly stable, all right? But of course, they've been eating more food, they've had more energy, which means they can train harder, and ultimately, that's going to help them build more muscle in the long run. Now, with a reverse diet, the first few weeks, your weight's going to stay pretty stable if you're being adherent. But long term, your weight will start to creep up, and that's for a few reasons. Number one, there's going to be more food inside of your body, right? If you go from eating 1,500 calories to 2,500 calories, there's more food inside of your digestive system. So that in itself is going to add weight. If you're increasing your carbohydrate intake, which you probably will, then that is going to increase glycogen storage in your muscle and liver cells. That in turn is going to increase water retention. So there are a few superficial factors that will increase weight sort of, long term. And then as well as that, when you do start to eat more food and obviously make your own metabolism more efficient, you can train harder in the gym, and slowly this is going to help create a more optimal internal hormonal environment to build muscle. So after the first few weeks, you will start to see sort of moderate lean tissue gains, which of course will also add weight to your frame. So the point I'm getting at is that you will see slight weight progressions as you reverse diet, but they shouldn't be significant. Building muscle is a very slow and laborious process. Therefore, you can expect 100-gram increases here and there, but if your weight's jumping up 400 grams, 500 grams or whatever, then maybe you're reverse dieting too quickly. And that might be a sign to slow down. And then eventually, at the end of a reverse diet, you'll be increasing calories, and then your weight will start to trend up like this. When your weight starts to trend up like this, then that's probably the end of the reverse diet. You know that you can't take your calories any higher, or you're just going to be putting yourself into a more aggressive surplus, and of course that's going to regain fat. So as you're tracking progress, calories going up, weight staying stable, there might be a slight increase, as I said, but when your weight starts to go up sort of exponentially, right, then that's when you need to end the reverse diet. And of course, that's a whole different video, right? Do you want to go into a surplus or whatnot? But for the purpose of this video, we're talking about reverse dieting. The goal is to get you back to your sort of pre-dieting phase maintenance level without regaining the fat that you worked hard to lose in the dieting phase. I hope you're still with me. So how fast should you increase calories? That is a good question. Now, for me, I like to just keep a nice sort of solid baseline for everyone. I increase calories by 100 calories per week for most clients, right? Some clients I might need to increase slower, 50 calories per week, but it really depends on your time frame, how big of a deficit you were in, when dieting, how high your maintenance was pre-dieting. So there are numerous factors that need to be taken into account when structuring, the sort of practical sides of a reverse diet. Or, some people like to work off percentages. So you increase your calories by 10% per week, etc. So, but the fact of the matter is, it should all be very, very marginal. And that's why I generally, use 100 calories per week as a good baseline, because from my experience with my clients, as long as the client is adherent, 100 calories per week is, sort of slow enough that it minimizes fat regain, but not too slow that the reverse diet takes ages. Okay, so to summarize, reverse dieting is an integral, right? It's not just an optional, it's an integral strategy after dieting. Okay, if you're going through long and extensive dieting periods and you don't reverse diet, at the end of it, you're just going to regain all of the weight and the fat that you have worked so hard to lose. I cannot stress that enough, right? What else was I going to say? Yes, prime examples of this are if you see these 12-week challenges where people are just given really low calories. There are a few brands and companies that do this around the world. I won't name them because, it wouldn't be ideal. But yeah, 12-week challenges where people are just starved. Like say 10 guys will go to this company, all of which are different body shapes, sizes, weights, heights, and they'll be given just one meal plan. A guy that's 100 kilos will be on 1,500 calories. A guy that's bloody 70 kilos will be on 1,500 calories. It's all very generic. And they basically just starve them for 12 weeks. And at the end, they get a good photo shoot. They look lean as hell. They look great on camera, but they are just fucking exhausted, feeling like shit, have no energy. And then after the 12-week challenge, these companies just say, right, off you go. Right, you've got lean, bye-bye. And then what happens, these people go home, they go back to their regular eating patterns, and they regain all of the weight and the fat that they've worked so hard to lose. And what makes this even more painful is they paid that company a lot of money to get them in shape, and now they've just left them on their own when they're most vulnerable, which is not good. I don't like to see that. So this is why I'm very diligent with my reverse dieting after a client is dieted, because at the end of a dieting phase, you are your most vulnerable. You're feeling weak, you're feeling lethargic, you're liking how you're looking in the mirror, of course, but that's when things can most go wrong, because you're eating such a low amount of food, it's going to be very, very easy to overeat. So reverse dieting, as I said, is an integral part of a sort of, body transformation, a long-term body transformation. And it's going to help you, stay in shape. That's the most important thing. Many people can get in shape, right? But can they actually stay in shape long-term? And I think the answer on the most part is no. Okay, so look, that's enough of me yapping. Reverse dieting, an integral part of a transformation journey. If you've got any questions in the little comments, apart from that, like and subscribe. And I hope you're enjoying this little series of me delving into the details of getting in shape. Ciao for now.